nature with its beauty and anger. The society with its policy and struggles, and human beings in general, are factors that affect artists. Artists usually derive from their heritage and the reality which they live in, the notions and subjects which form the signs that shape their works of art. The essence of beauty in nature has an effective impact on the artist. It's the inner reality that can be seen through the shapes of natural elements together with their order, energy, accuracy, concurrency, compatibility, richness and variety of the shapes, their simplicity, complication, purity, primitivism, and the way man teems with nature and dominates it with no limits. A portrait painting or drawing depicts the image of a particular person or animal or group thereof. The subject of a portrait is usually called a sitter because traditionally people would sit in front of the artist to have their portrait painted. Nowadays, of course, artists can work from a photograph, so not everyone has to sit for a portrait. Portraits are effective and compelling when they tell us something about the person.
In this painting, I'm depicting an Egyptian youth. He's from the Delta, from Mahalla Kubra. His name is Usama. He is a young man who is very ambitious, but he's decided really to give his best to Egypt. But here I am not depicting his real personality. He is now depicting an Egyptian falah, a farmer from Lower Egypt, and he is so immersed in his worries. He has his head leaning on his hand like this and thinking in deep thought, what can I do? I don't have the money to achieve all my dreams. But he is not aware that he is sitting on a great civilization of more than 5,000 years, because the actual rock or stone that he is sitting on has lovely, lovely carvings from one of the temples, which depicts the idea of the richness of history. And if we start to bloom where we are planted, and this is one of my mottos, if God puts you somewhere, you should really do your best where God has put you. Instead of trying maybe to immigrate in an illegal way, and we have heard many stories how people drown on the way and suffer and lose their money, why not invest in Egypt? And our youth, if they are given the chance, they can do miracles in our homeland.
Good portrait is not just a visual representation of a person. It would also reveal something about the essence of that person. What the portrait reveals may not be completely obvious. Sometimes it can be cleverly implied through a certain expression or pose, an included object, or the artist's use of color. Sometimes the person in the portrait can become iconic, representing a wider group of people from a specific period in time who share something in common.
The Child Enthroned is the title I have chosen for this rather small picture, which is done in a special technique, almost like an icon. When you look at the child and the gold leaf behind, you think actually of Coptic and of Greek icons. But in the same time, it's not really a religious picture, in spite of the fact that the symbolic element in the picture is full of religious connotations and undertones. The painting simply depicts a little girl from Saqqara area. She is veiled, which indicates that she is a Muslim, but she has a halo, which has a Christian connotation. And in her hands, she is holding the scepter and the flail of the child king, King Tutankhamun. And I think the combination of all this strata of cultures in one picture can tell us more about the Egyptian identity than volumes could speak, because it is a picture of reconciliation. It is reconciling the that has passed, the civilizations behind the Egyptian genius. There is something about this cocktail of amalgamation of cultures in one place called Egypt. And this is the riches of our culture that we should really defend with all our hearts and keep that culture rich and having multi-facets that are all reconciled with each other. And this is the only way we can keep that flavor of Egyptian life, by keeping the multicultural background and preserving every part of it as being an integral part and ingredient of our cultural makeup.
A strong portrait captivates viewers, draws them into the painting, and engages their attention. Such a portrait painting causes the viewer to wonder about the person depicted. In this way, a portrait painting or drawing can function as a biography, telling the story of that person's life. The artist will carefully craft visual clues to tell the story of the person in the artwork. Portrait paintings can reveal the sitter's place in society, their hobbies or occupation, or aspects of their personality or beliefs.
During the 25th of January revolution, there were thousands of people swarming around the Tahrir Square downtown Cairo. And this lady behind me has been witnessing it all, not just during the January revolution, but all through the history of Egypt. This actually represents the statue on the left-hand side of the entrance to the Egyptian Museum. It's one of two Egyptomania statues flanking the entrance of the Egyptian Museum. And like the story of Galatia with Pygmalion, we find that this lady has transformed into a real person. And she is holding a lotus flower in her hand, and on that lotus flower we find rays of sun coming and bathing the whole scene in light, and that is the sun of freedom coming and filling the Tahrir Square. And during the early days of the Egypt revolution, the revolution was termed the revolution of lotus. Just like in Tunisia, the revolution was that of jasmine. And so there was a symbolic flower. Not only does it represent the revolution, but also it was the symbol of Upper Egypt, where I come from since I was born in Asyut. And I feel that this revolutionary painting is so bathed in light and also in symbolism, because the Egyptomania was a movement that happened in Europe during the latter half of the 19th century, where Europeans got in